hear myself. Can I hear you?
I can hear you, and I can hear me.
Good.
And so we're podcasting.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that marks this as the inaugural, what is it, breaking in ceremony? What's our...
I think so. And so the breaking in ceremony is... we need a name for it.
We do. Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Do we have a name for this yet? We should crowdsource names, see if anyone comes up with a name for it. So what are we going to be talking about on here? Let's just introduce what this is.
Well, to begin, this is our podcast booth because there are a lot of things going on in the world that we want to talk about and felt like we needed a forum to do it. The first thing is election season.
Yeah, there's been a lot going on. Like you were saying, I think we're just going to kind of cover a lot of current events, a lot of local events, whatever we have going on. So we've put a lot of time and energy into trying to get this booth set up. I think it looks pretty cool. Yeah, I'm happy with this. And the big thing that's been going on right now is election season. I guess I didn't introduce myself. My name's Drew. Drew Edgar. I work at Jim Leach's office here, doing all kinds of various media things. I'm a photographer, videographer, graphic artist, all of those fun things. Jim, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself for people that are watching this and have no idea who you are? I don't know who those people are, but we're going to pretend they exist.
Well, let's do that. But first, let me round out the introduction of Drew Edgar. So Drew is definitely my wingman. In fact, he's responsible for the design and creation of this podcast booth, the tech that's behind it. And so kudos to him for that. He's one of the most talented people I've ever met in the media space, as well as any space he wants to be in, really.
Well, thank you.
So, my name's Jim Leach. And likewise, I've tried to live a pretty well-rounded life. I'm by profession, I'm a lawyer. And I'm also a licensed general contractor, licensed electrician. I'm a politician of sorts, really more just public service for the city of Vienna Council. I've served 2 full terms and am moving toward election for the third. Is a little bit about what we're going to talk about here. So I've got, I guess if we move into this, I'll talk a little bit about my family and some things like that. But, on broad strokes, I think that I would call this Vienna Votes, because we are primarily focused on what's happening in our small 10,500 citizen population, beautiful little city of Vienna.
Right. So what has been going on? So you said you've been serving on council since 2016, you said. How's your experience been with that?
So 2016, we started the campaign, and my focus at that time was the Johns Manville cleanup. And boy, did I underestimate what a path that would take us on. The Manville is actually, just a quick update since that was a 2016 platform. In 2021, I think, and I'm sure someone will fact check me on this if I'm wrong, we got the certificate of completion on the Spencer's Landing side, the 17 acres across River Road, the west side of River Road. And since that time, we've been focused on the production side where the actual Johns Manville plant was. The final report, everything has been done, approved by the West Virginia DEP, and I have pretty serious heartburn about dealing with Johns Manville Corporation themselves, because they have thus far, since February, my efforts have been going on, refused to allow us to ease the land use restriction so that the city of Vienna can get the highest, best use out of that piece of property. Probably might recruit a few Vienna residents to help me express our chagrin with Johns Manville and their in-house corporate counsel, a guy named Brent Tracy, who has thus far stymied our efforts to get this Manville project closed the rest of the way out so we have it available for development. So, long answer to your short question.
Yeah, and that has been a very long time in the making. So how long has that plant been sitting there, I guess, decrepit, out of use? Because it's been as long as I can remember. And just for context, I'm not from Parkersburg. I mean, I'm from the area. I grew up in Newport, small town about 15 minutes north of Marietta, but I didn't move into Parkersburg until within the last 5-10 years or so. And just as long as I can remember being in the area, that's just been an eyesore right in the heart of the city. How long was it actually sitting there before this cleanup effort really got started proper?
So I don't know when Manville exactly ceased production activities. After they did, the plant site sat vacant. it was sold to a company called Structural Resources, who came in and basically cherry-picked the site of all the metals and everything that had any value, and along the way just commingled asbestos with all construction debris, concrete, and left a total mess. At that time, the city of Vienna is looking at the situation. This is 35 acres in the heart of Vienna.
Right.
That is a train wreck, right? Manville would have had to take responsibility ultimately, but before my time on council, the city made the decision to buy Johns Manville. So that would have been before 2016.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I kind of vaguely recall seeing that cycling in the news. So I'm just curious, just for my edification, I know the process to even get it to where it is now has been a bit of a nightmare. Do you want to go through just a few of the really basic steps? We don't have to get into the weeds on this, but just what an uphill battle it's been even to get it where it is now. I know you said the Manville company itself is kind of giving you some pushback on being able to complete the project, but just all the hurdles that you guys have had to clear to get it to the point that it's at now.
Well, the purpose of the voluntary remediation program under the West. Oh, all right. Drew's training me. This is our first podcast. Is that good? And
much better. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
I guess I'm a sit back kind of guy. But the purpose of the voluntary remediation program is to get property owners to work in conjunction with the DEP to restore blighted properties that have been, I guess, industrial use throughout their lifetimes, so that they can be redeveloped. A lot of these things are like people hear the term brownfields, redevelop into recreation sites, a lot of different purposes, and that was the idea. But in going through the process, you have to meet the remediation standards. We have to test groundwater, we have to do soil sampling, all of the things, so that first of all we know what constituents of concern are. And of course, the entire property is not impacted. It's basically different locations. An example would be back in the day, most people were aware that electrical transformers used PCB lubricants to keep the transformers cool. And those have, since this, probably in the 70s, were outlawed. I need to talk to Alex. Can we?
Oh, you're good. Yeah, just go ahead.
Okay.
That's all right. This is a marker about this.
Marker. All right, back to Manville. So, the purpose is to identify any pathways to human exposure, all right, of any constituents of concern. How's that for a mouthful?
Right.
But the bottom line is to make it safe to redevelop and reuse for the community, because, as I said, this is 35 acres right in the heart of Vienna. So it's been a long process. I've been working on the project for 8 years. Again, we are this close to being done. And if I could just get Manville, in fact, I think we're going to have to take Manville to court is the next step, simply because they won't cooperate. And I'm going to probably throw them under the bus pretty hard. This is not my first rodeo with Johns Manville. Of course, they were one of the major asbestos players back in the day. They were responsible for subjecting hundreds of thousands of employees to asbestos exposure, hiding the fact that they knew the dangers of asbestos. And that's well documented. I mean, there were medical and surgical notes from the 1930s, meetings that Johns Manville was in, where they were advised by, again, surgeons and physicians employed in the industry that asbestos caused lung disease. It was not until 1982, Drew, 1982, 50 years, before the first warning ever appeared on an asbestos product that it was hazardous.
It was wild. I actually did not realize it was that recent. I guess 82 isn't that recent, but it seems like the dangers of asbestos have just been cultural knowledge for, ever at this point. But clearly, yeah, like I said, I didn't realize it was actually that recent. So,
well, early in my career, I had some pun intended exposure to asbestos litigation and learned some stories. I'm going to tell this one real quick, and you can cut it out, but I'm going to tell it anyway, so I have it on the camera. So, asbestos is a natural occurring mineral. It's fireproof, amazing qualities in that respect. And it's mined, among other places, in Africa. And there was a industrialist named Philip Carey, and he had asbestos mines in Africa. And the way that they would pack asbestos is they would pack it, because it comes in a long, stringy fiber. So they would pack it in burlap bags. And the way that they packed it in the bags was having children jump up and down in the bag, packing the asbestos down into the burlap for shipping. And that is when the first reports of lung disease, these kids coughing up blood and having lung disorders from working in, doing this kind of thing. And, that's back in the day. And the story goes from there. But I thought that was amazing to hear that they would allow that kind of a thing to go. And in fact, it was the Philip Carey organization is where the documents that blew the whole lid off this thing were discovered in a mansion, I guess, that the descendants of Philip Carey owned. So that was an interesting story. But anyway, back to Vienna. So the Johns Manville project is it's kind of a cornerstone of what's going to happen in this next 4 years. A lot is being considered, done, talked about right now, and we're of course doing the survey on Spencer's Landing. But that's a little bit of the history of where we are. We're this close to having it out of the program, and I cannot wait for that to happen. That's been a burr in my saddle for a lot of years.
Right. Yeah. And definitely a lot of progress has been made. So yeah, that'll be very interesting and exciting. Even as someone that doesn't live in Vienna, I still consider myself largely a part of this community. I mean, my wife teaches in Vienna, and I spend a lot of time here. I've given a couple talks at the senior center, and yeah, I just, like I said, more or less consider myself a part of this community, even if I don't technically live here. And I'm excited to see how that continues. And on that note, I know we've talked a little bit off and on about, kind of different projects that you have in mind, or sort of where you would like to see Vienna move towards, what your, I guess, vision of the future of Vienna looks like. Do you want to get into that a little bit?
Sure. And long way to go and short time to get there, really. I'm 64 years old. I have been on Vienna City Council for 8 years. Mayor Randy Rapp and I are the only incumbents running. Kim Williams, of course, is running for mayor, but she's not an incumbent. She was a former council person. So the mayor and I have talked about a number of things. When you look at the makeup of the city of Vienna, Vienna has a very experienced leadership in the mayor, in the department heads that work with him. Our finance director has been with the city for 30 plus years. Public Works Director Craig Metz, Steve Black, Stephanie Brofman. Really senior leadership in the city, and we're not going to have that forever. And so, long way to go, short time to get there. We have some very aggressive goals for this next term, if after this election, assuming it goes that way. Seth's coming in.
Oh, cool.
Let's take a break.
All right, 1 second. We'll be right back.
So we're just picking up where we left off?
I think so. Yeah, we had actually one of the other candidates for city council just stopped in here and said hi, Seth Colvin. So we took a brief intermission. So if our train of thought seems a little disjointed, that's at least one reason why.
Well, I'll tell you what, Drew, this campaign's pretty important. I think here's what it means to me. I know this is my last term. I said a minute ago, I'm 64. I'll be 67, 68 years old when this term's over. By the time I intend to retire and start enjoying my family, both from my profession, from public service, and I think it's probably is going to be the same as going to be true with Mayor Rapp and several of our department heads. That's why it's so important to me to see some of the young people that are stepping up. Seth Colvin is my son-in-law. Carrie Rapp is the mayor's daughter. And then Tony Morrison, a young man that I've known his entire life. I coached him all the time that I was coaching Vienna rec sports, mostly football. Tony's dad, Al Morrison, and I coached together. We're good friends. And I coached Tony and his younger brother, Chad. They're fine young people. So paving the way to a new generation of leadership in the city of Vienna, and that continuity of maintaining the quality of life that we have in Vienna is pretty important to me. You talk about public service. It's a pretty thankless pursuit. People want to just kind of chomp at you a little bit. And quite frankly, in my experience on city council, it's been other council members that have been the biggest pains to me. I consider. So one thing that a book I like, and I've given to all my children to read, is it's called The 7 Habits of Highly Successful People by Stephen Covey, and it's just a roadmap for leading a life of character, integrity, and purpose. And in that book, Stephen Covey talks about you have a circle of concern, and that narrows ultimately to a circle of influence. So a circle of concern at this point would be, for example, the national political stage, or even the state. Because we in West Virginia know who we support in the presidential election. We know how that's going to go. I think largely the same is true for our state offices, for our governor, attorney general, the different offices in the state of West Virginia. But, Vienna City Council is a nonpartisan political body, and that's true for a reason. It's public service. It's not politics. So I'm going to tell my story. Give me a lead in here, Drew. Ask me about Roger Bibby.
All right. So I think I know where this is going. So Councilman Bibby, he had a very interesting, I think a pretty astute view on public service at the city level, like you're talking about. So what was that? What was that view?
Well, let's introduce Roger just a little bit first. Roger was a volunteer firefighter his whole life. I think he spent about 27 years actively a member of the fire department, rising to the position of assistant chief. And then he was an honorary member for the rest of his life, which sadly ended recently. In addition, Roger spent a long time on city council, was constantly reelected because of his practical. I'll stop snapping my fingers. Yeah, Drew's trying to train me.
I was trying to be subtle.
Okay. Anyway, so early on, I will tell you, I have, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 businesses that my wife and I own and operate. And when I first got on city council, I'm coming in with this private sector business mindset. I learned fairly soon that doesn't directly apply to public service and managing a city. But here's the story. So there was some matter that had been put out for public comment. I can't remember if it had to do with Manville or what it was, but the point was that there was not really much public input on the issue, whatever it was. In fact, it was largely ignored. And one of the council members that I mentioned earlier that I wasn't particularly fond of wanted to make a big issue of that. And I'll never forget. Roger turned to that councilman and he says, listen, he says, your average citizen doesn't give a flippity flip about what's going on in these council chambers. They have elected us to take care of that. So as long as their toilets flush and their water runs, they're satisfied. And that made a lasting impression on me because it really does reflect the fact that the majority of the time, people just want council to do their job, leave the drama aside, and leave them alone to live their lives. And anyway, so that was my Roger Bibby story.
Right? Yeah, and I mean that works for me. All right. So what is our show and tell?
Show and tell. So I'm a diehard journaler, and I try to keep track of thoughts day in and day out, and it might take me a minute to find what I'm referencing, but I was thinking about Roger, and I was thinking about this election. And wow, you never get this lucky. And so looks like on September 25th at 1:10 a.m., I wrote, for 4 years, it has been our duty. Okay, I'm going to start over. I can't read my writing. Okay, I'm ready again. September 25th, 1:10 a.m. My musing. For 4 years, it has been our duty to listen and to serve. Now, in this brief election season, now in this brief election season, it is your duty to listen and to serve by voting, by casting an informed ballot. And that's going to be a big issue here because all of our races in Vienna are contested. There are 3 candidates running for mayor. There are 2 candidates running for recorder, and then there are 10 candidates on the ballot for city council. So Roger Bibby was on the ballot. He was seeking re-election when he untimely passed, and that was tragic. And in fact, Roger will be missed, and I was sad. I would have supported him for re-election above all others on city council. But Roger's name will appear on the ballot, in addition to 9 other candidates, I believe, for city council. Understand that if you vote for Roger, that would be a show of respect, but it will also mean that you will not be able to vote for the 5 actual candidates who will be elected. So keep that in mind. Just a brief explanation, too. Of course, we do not have a charter in the city of Vienna. So our mayor is the administrator of the city. Second in command, I suppose, is the recorder. The recorder's responsibility is to post the agenda for the meetings, to take the minutes, to serve in the mayor's stead if he's not available. And you know what? There's not been a time when the recorder has had to step in and serve for Mayor Rapp. Mayor Rapp has been on council since 2004, served as the recorder from 2004 until 2012, and then he was elected in 2012, and he served to this day as our mayor. In all of that time, Mayor Rapp has not missed a single council meeting. That is something.
That is wild. I am lucky to go a month without missing some obligation of some sort. That's, genuinely impressive.
Yeah, and he's gone through, I think, 1 or 2 hip replacements in that time, and he's scheduled his time to be able to make it to council. It's incredibly important. You know, his call to duty, so to speak, is sincere, genuine, and a true mark of his leadership. Anyway, so the mayor, council, and the recorder make up a total of 7 seats on council. Mayor, recorder, 5 council people. No one vote counts any more than the other, and it is majority rule to make decisions in the city of Vienna. So that's kind of how things work and what we have coming up. And I think that the number of people on council, even though majority rules, I think it's incredibly important that the mindset, the makeup of city council work together. And unfortunately, I have not experienced that on my time in council. We have had what I call, in both terms, a 5-2 council. The typical vote on anything where there was any dissension, it would be 5 council members in favor, 2 against. And so in those terms, my first term, the council was made up, in addition to the current body, Bruce Rogers was on council and Kathy Smith was our recorder. In this term, they were replaced by Melissa Elam as a recorder and Mike Elam as a council person. Sadly and tragically, Mike Elam passed away from COVID at 51 years old. Left his wife, Melissa, and 2 sons. And everybody in town knows about that very sorry thing that happened. So anyway, that's a little bit about how council functions, and not so much about what's coming up. But I digress, I suppose. Right?
Yeah, and that's fine. That's what podcasts are for. Digressions. So it's all right. So yeah, I know we started to kind of mention about some of what you would like to see moving forward in Vienna. Like, what does your vision for a future Vienna look like? I think we kind of started to talk about getting a little bit of younger blood in there. Do you have any, pet projects or ideas, or just kind of visions for what you would like to see Vienna look like in, I don't know, 4 years, 8 years, 10 years?
Thanks for the refocus, Drew. I appreciate you keeping me on track. You can break this down. Wow, there's so much to talk about. In the past year, I got involved with the idea of a city advocate, somebody who, separate and apart from the mayor, like a business and economic development person. We used to have, in my first term, we had a person in that position. He retired, and the position was discontinued for a period of time. But then last year, we entered a contract with the Wood County Economic Development Authority, headed by Lindsay Pearsall, and Lindsay's a fantastic asset for the city. And we've also supplemented that with a contract with Jack Mathers for some of the more on-the-ground economic development, and we're seeing fruit from that. But during the time we were doing that, you and I developed a kind of a three-prong approach to the things we'd like to see: business development, economic development, and cultural development. So each of those has components that are, hopefully, on the agenda in this next term and in the years to come. So which one do you want to talk about first?
Let's talk about the cultural development.
Cultural development. So you can't talk about cultural development in West Virginia without mentioning a fellow by the name of Brad Smith. He's a fascinating story. Every once in a while, just like, I guess the Jerry West and the notable people that have come out of West Virginia over the years. Brad Smith grew up in, I think, Wayne County, just outside of Huntington, West Virginia. And his career took him to the highest position, CEO of Intuit, which is QuickBooks. And
I've heard of that.
Yeah, you might have. And the amazing part of this is, I think when and I don't know all the details, but when he first took the reins of Intuit, QuickBooks, this was a desktop-based computer accounting software. And during his 10-year tenure as a CEO, he took it to the cloud-based, multi-billion-dollar company that it is today. Then he stepped away. And what did he do? He went, I would say, to public service. I mean, he took the job as the president of Marshall University in Huntington.
Right.
In addition, my facts aren't 100%. I didn't come in here all prepared to talk about this, but here's my understanding. So when he came back to West Virginia and took the presidency of Marshall.
Fact checking.
Okay, thanks.
No, go ahead.
He also, from his own pocket, I think he put up $25 million, and he created what is called the Ascend West Virginia program. And this was around during COVID and so many, and around that time when so many people transitioned into working from home. And his idea was, if people are going to be able to work from home, they can work from anywhere. And wild, wonderful, almost heaven, West Virginia has all of this adventure, tourism, quality of life, rural community that he knew would be attractive to a lot of people. So he offered in this Ascend West Virginia, he created different regions in the state, like where our national park is now, the Gauley Bridge and Gauley River, and the Morgantown, Martinsburg, different areas in the state. And he offered incentives for young families to move to the state of West Virginia. He offered them $12,000 to relocate, in addition to this adventure package that came along with the transition, as long as you lived here 2 years. I was really motivated and understood the reason he was doing that, because if you look at the census, the ongoing tale in West Virginia is our population loss. And it's affected Vienna, I think, less than other areas of the state, because Vienna is a very desirable part of West Virginia to live in. But so, when talking about cultural, right, for example, we've just done a $7 million renovation on our pool. There was some pushback in getting that project funded and completed, but we've just finished our first summer with our new pool, and the attendance records are off the charts. We've got dual slides, 22-foot slides that the kids absolutely love, all new pool deck, all new facilities. It's wonderful, and it will serve us for generations to come. The other thing that's happening is we have, of course, everybody's familiar with the Miracle Mile, right? The mall, and the mall came into existence when I was a 12-year-old child. I remember riding my bike on the dirt piles while they were doing construction. Since that time, we've had what a lot of people and I refer to as Old Vienna. And Old Vienna currently is a fair number of dilapidated and vacant buildings, basically running from 23rd Street to 34th Street, which is our Old Vienna. 34th Street is where the commercial district ends. We're seeing development in that area. McAppy's is now building their new restaurant. What's the name of the car wash? Wash Right?
Wash Right?
Yeah. So they went in the site of what was a dilapidated empty retail storefront that had a used furniture place in there, I think, before they tore it down. Right now, and near and dear and exciting to my heart, is 3006 Grand Central Avenue, Mrs. Miller's house. That house was built by her father in the early 1900s. She lived there until her 90s when she passed away. When she died, she really had no family. She left her property and her assets to charity, and a member of her church was her executor. I talked with him, eventually bought that house from him. Unfortunately, as you might imagine, somebody that lived there their whole lives, it was in a state of disrepair. In fact, had a lot of termite damage. But we took that project on. It's just coming to completion. And I'm so thrilled to share that my son, Morgan, who is a lawyer, has moved his law office into that residential property in Vienna's commercial district. And we're trying to use that to set an example of what we want to see happen over the next few years in Old Vienna to really reestablish, rehabilitate, and revitalize downtown Vienna. So I'm pretty excited about that. Spencer's Landing is another part of the cultural development. Everybody's probably aware there's a survey being circulated now by the Thrasher Group. And this survey is designed to get public input. But, Drew, and I don't know if I ramble too long in talking about, you wind me up and let me go, and it can take a few minutes to get the end of it. But Spencer's Landing is 17 acres on the river. Vienna is the only community in the valley that does not have a footprint on the Ohio River. Marietta does, Belpre does, Parkersburg does. And so this is pretty important to our citizens, and that's what as I understand it, there's been consistent interest by citizens of Vienna that we have this riverfront property. What's being considered is how to develop Spencer's Landing, whether we should put it in an amphitheater. And that's so that survey goes from now, I believe we just extended it until October 19th. After the glow on the O, the hot air balloons that are coming to Spencer's Landing later this month, because you'll be able to complete the survey while you're in attendance there on your phone. There'll be QR codes, and you can just scan that, complete the survey, and give us your 2 cents. So I could go on for another half hour about all these opportunities of cultural development in Vienna, but those are some of the highlights. We are looking. Wow, like I said, Drew, I could go. So I'll stop there.
Yeah, and just to offer my thoughts on Vienna's culture, you get this impression, you could almost call it a meme of West Virginia as this kind of backwoods hillbilly, not really having much to offer except maybe some pretty landscape, and that is just not my experience at all. And especially in Vienna, there are just so many great small businesses, local places. Even for me, like my interest, my friend group and everything, a lot more of the artistic sort. I'm friends with a lot of musicians and people that like to patronize these like little craft coffee shops, things like that. And there's a lot of that kind of thing in Vienna that are great. And for my money, like world class, like Koba cafes in Vienna. It is the best Vietnamese food I've ever had. Like we, travel, we'll get boba tea wherever we go, and nothing compares to that. Lock 4 coffee, again, down off of Grand Central. Incredible. I actually wanted to have some this morning to have sitting here for some product placement, but I was running late, so I've got the synthetic monster in a can. And just all these little places popping up, like the Frosty Shop 2 is down there near the U-Bolt Cafe, I think now. And it's a great little small business. And just beyond that, like you talked about, the initiatives to be able to get more younger professionals that are able to work remotely from wherever in here. And I think that is genuinely a great opportunity. In fact, I know some people like that. I won't call them out by name, but yeah, I know some people that are fairly high-end developers that work from home in Vienna, and they love it. And it is a beautiful area. There is that riverfront access, which, like you said, if Vienna can expand that, I mean, that's a huge boon to Parkersburg and Marietta. You see how many events they have there. And then just within driving distance of here, there's just so many things to do. Again, you get kind of the meme of there's nothing to do in the Mid-Ohio Valley or just in West Virginia in general. And that's, again, just patently untrue. Like I enjoy mountain biking where 10 minutes from Mount Wood Park, which has some world-class mountain bike trails. It's fantastic and just a beautiful place. We have a great local music scene. I went and filmed a concert Friday evening with just some fantastic, energetic musicians. And it's just, yeah, I think there is so much more opportunity. There's already so much here that a lot of people may not necessarily realize. And there's so much opportunity to expand that and to build that awareness of what we actually have going on here, because it's fantastic. Like I work with a lot of artists and musicians that, again, I think are deserving of way more attention than they get. And it's just people don't realize how many cool things we have going on here. So being able to highlight that and continue to build that and build the infrastructure to allow those things to develop further is, yeah, I think that all sounds great. I mean,
well, first, let me give a quick also shout out. The Bodega is one of my favorites, and now they're kind of building sharing. And they bought in a pottery concern. I don't recall the name. They've just moved in. Really a creative use of that building because you sell coffee in the morning and then they do those arts and crafts in the afternoon. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the draw, that's what we're after, Drew. We want our young people to stay here and come back. You and I have worked together for how long?
2013, February 2013. So yeah, 11 and a half years.
Right. And so you are the poster child for what we want to see in this valley. So Drew's an extremely talented, as we made in the introduction, multifunction guy. I mean, whatever he puts his mind to, he excels at, whether it be media like this podcast booth and his ability with computers and art and media and whatever he puts. He works in my law office and he's a whiz with all of the numbers that we have to process in that environment. And Drew has 2 wonderful children, his beautiful wife, Brandy, he mentioned earlier. 3 children. All right. Yes. He keeps the So
I wasn't going to call you out.
I
just made a subtle gesture.
Owen is he's grown up so fast. He's 4.
No, he's almost 4. He'll be 4 in February.
Yeah, so I mean it goes so fast. Mm-hmm. But that's such the idea. And so let's talk about that. Tony Morrison, I mentioned earlier, has recently relocated to Vienna with his lovely wife and 4 boys. Seth Colvin, my son-in-law, and my daughter Sydney just moved back to Vienna, started a small business, took over TV Geist Machine Company, is helping me restore this storage and distribution warehouse here in Upper Vienna that hasn't been in operation since it was Goldsmith Black, and all those jobs were lost. That's our focus. The young people, giving them the opportunity, giving them the interest, kind of like from Field of Dreams, right? Build it and they will come. And that's what we're about in this next term, to keep the young people that we have by providing the types of things that interest them, allowing them to, as you say, to discover, right? To discover what all is available in here in West Virginia and to continue to build on that. So a great opportunity for us, and the important thing, what I'm so thrilled about, is not just that Tony and Seth relocated to Vienna, but they've immediately stepped into this role of public service if you support them in their campaigns, and the same with Carrie Rapp. Those 3 are, well, let's give a little bit of their bios. All right. So Carrie has a business degree from Merida College and a master's in business administration from West Virginia University. She is instrumental in managing healthcare services, Advantage plans for Medicare, I believe in West Virginia, Maryland, Virginia, multiple states. A very responsible position, very knowledgeable about healthcare. And when you look at the senior population that we have in Vienna, her ability to serve that population is going to be invaluable. Tony has a degree in banking and finance. He works for large corporations in acquiring oil and gas rights. He is what's called a landman. That means he engages with the public on a daily basis and is very skilled both in those financial administrative affairs as well as engaging the public. Seth Colvin is a mechanical engineer, has a degree from West Virginia University. He has extensive experience in the mining industry, oil and gas industry, hydraulic industry. As I mentioned, he's operating a machine shop now here in Vienna, and he and his wife Sydney works in our law office with us, and she contributes to a lot of the office administration. Really made a big impact in our ability to step out and do things like this. Right, Sydney's at the office holding down the fort while we're playing. That's why this cultural development is so important, to make this an even more attractive city, because Vienna consistently ranks in the top tier. There are 230 cities in West Virginia. By any metric, Vienna is always in the top 10. This year, I think homesnacks.com has ranked the city of Vienna as the second most attractive location, quality of life. And this has to do with availability of amenity, safety, our police department, our crime rate, all of the things that you measure a city by across the board. Vienna consistently is rated at the top.
I just heard something.
Did something die on us?
Shouldn't have, because they're all plugged in. But I'm going to go press the record button again. There should be no limit on this.
I see.
This is what I'm talking about.
No red light.
Difficulties.
Yep. I see no red light on the center camera. Hey,
1 second.
I text something. So maybe we should kind of start from the top and just try to get just a short introduction of what we're doing, hit the high points, try to get about a 3 to 5 minute cut.
That's fine. Let's just go back. We'll get a refresher, because we're kind of starting to get in our groove a little bit here. We've been trying to feel this out some. So we're going to do another take here, and I'm probably just going to leave this in the long take. You're growing a podcast along with us while we figure out what we're doing. So I think we've got a better sense. Did you come up with a name yet?
Well, yeah, I kind of like the Vienna Vibe.
The Vienna Vibe. We can go with the Vienna Vibe for now. If anyone has any other suggestions, we can crowdsource them. But yeah, so what is the Vienna Vibe?
So the Vienna Vibe, as to what's going on in Vienna today, it's election season. And I'm here to talk about not only that I'm running for re-election as a third-term Vienna City Council person, but based on my experience, both in serving on Vienna City Council, as well as becoming familiar with those candidates who are also seeking a seat at the table. I'm not trying to tell anybody who to vote for. That's not my job. I have one vote just like you do. But for those of you who may like to have a little bit of advice or insight, or what my recommendation would be and who I would like to serve with based on my knowledge of the experience and potential and talent of those seeking a seat, I've definitely got an opinion. And, recently somebody called me out and said, well, you can't really go talk to people about who you want on council. And I was like, I don't park my free speech rights at the intersection of private citizenship and public service. I am entitled as an American citizen to express my opinion, and I have a very clear opinion of who I want on this council. And in fact, I'm getting called out pretty hard by a mayoral candidate, Kim Williams, about expressing my opinions. Well, as far as I'm concerned, shame on her. In fact, the fact that she's kind of an island in her seeking a position as mayor, that's her issue. So let me tell you about who my slate is, right? Long-serving, proven, positive leader, Mayor Randy Rapp. That is the only person I want to serve with as the leader of our city. He has proven that to me over 8 years. I didn't know what my relationship was going to be with Randy Rapp when I first took a seat at council table. In fact, he put me way out on the wing because he wasn't sure about me either. Over the years, we've come to respect, trust, and rely on each other in trying to make the best decisions for the city. Number 2, recorder. There's 2 candidates. I absolutely support Rod Smith. Rod Smith was an upper executive running the underwriting department for Highmark, Mountain State, Blue Cross Blue Shield. Oh no, Drew. It looks like your right camera this time, the light went out, or the left.
All right.
Where was I?
I've decreed it. This is the last of our technical difficulties. So you're talking about your relationship with Mayor Rapp throughout your council tenureship and how that's kind of evolved.
Yeah, I think I bounced past that, actually. I was on to Rod Smith. Rod's running for recorder. As I mentioned, Rod was an executive and is retired from what is now Highmark, Blue Cross Blue Shield. He did a lot of underwriting. Again, very familiar with the healthcare. We have 80 employees-ish in the city of Vienna, and we provide outstanding healthcare for our employees. It's one of the big attracting features for retention of our employees, but our employees are aging out too. We have an older workforce, just like we have an older population in West Virginia. In Vienna. And so Rod's familiarity, because every year we have to renew and evaluate our healthcare, his familiarity with that and also the financial aspects makes him well qualified to be a member of city council and to contribute valuable insight, that experience. Harry Dietzler is running. Harry's also a local lawyer. I've known Harry since he was the prosecuting attorney in Wood County in the early 80s. I helped him with his campaign when I was a computer technician to run for attorney general. And as he likes to put it, the voting public decided he was better served in the private sector. And he went on to have a very, and continues to this day, to have a very successful career as a private lawyer. And in fact, in Vienna, we have state-of-the-art carbon filtration for our entire water system to, in particular, make sure that we filtrate any of the C8 forever chemical that exists in our water supply based on the DuPont operations over the decades. Harry Dietzler and his work leading up to that was instrumental in the city of Vienna being able to procure that carbon filtration system that is paid for by Chemours and DuPont, not by the city of Vienna. And Harry's also a philanthropist. Were you going to interrupt me?
Go ahead.
Okay.
I'm
you're
on this.
You're a little paranoid about the cameras.
Go ahead. Keep going.
The other thing, Harry has, he's based on the success in his career, he's formed the Dietzler Foundation, and he has in the past and will continue, regardless of the outcome of this election, continue to contribute to the well-being of the city of Vienna. He's currently looking at a project, astroturfing a full-size soccer field, which would be a tremendous boon to our youth sports in Vienna. So, and I guess there's me. So I bring what I bring. And it would be the experience and the understanding of what I think is the highest, best interest for the citizens of Vienna and the decisions I make. So those 4 make up the experience. Mayor Rapp's 20 years. Rod's experience with Highmark and involvement. He's on the Friends of Vienna board of directors, and I could go on and on. Harry and myself, we all have the experience to make some of these informed decisions about what is in the best interest in Vienna's future. Combine that with the Youngbloods, right? With Toni Morrison, Carrie Rapp, and Seth Colvin. That gives you 7 people seated on this in this council chamber that both provide the experience, the youth, the vitality, the energy, the insight to take advantage, and it'll be, I guess, for another podcast, Drew, but the opportunities that Vienna has right now with the development of the former High Valley University campus, which is now owned through a $10 million grant from the Ross Foundation. I hope I'm right on that. But it's definitely instrumental in acquiring that property. That is not going to be ITC. More of this work from home, high-tech environment right in our city limits. That property could yield up to 100 home sites, which we're in desperate need. We did a home survey in 2022 under the direction of Lindsay Pearsall with Wood County Economic Development Authority. Vienna needs housing for our young families. Critical need that is going to be, that's one opportunity.
That's why I don't live in Vienna. When we purchased our house in Parkersburg in 2017, we were hoping to make it into Vienna. There just was not anything available that would have made sense for us. So, yeah.
Well, and that's, let me interject a quick thing with respect to our seniors, right? The majority of our seniors that live in Vienna own their own homes. The median home price in Vienna is well above the state average in West Virginia. It's because of the safety, security of our city, the quality of our infrastructure, water, sewer, streets. Everything that goes into a well-run city helps to preserve those home values for our seniors and other families. If we can expand the opportunity for that housing within city limits, that's going to make opportunities more for families like yours to live in Vienna. We would love to have you in Vienna, Drew. So that rounds out my slate of candidates. And just as I mentioned, I'm getting some gas on the internet. I want to make something clear. I don't need anyone's permission to exercise my right of free speech and to say who I want. I didn't ask any one of those other 6 people that I mentioned whether they cared if I supported them or not. I don't need their permission. I don't need their permission to speak ill of them or to speak well of them. And these are the ones that I speak well of. These are the ones that, quite frankly, difference between, so Drew, you work with me in the private sector, right? In other words, my law office, you and I dabble in a car business, and all of these are private sector jobs that we have created over the years, and we've done them for the whole time. In fact, you started building cars with me.
Right, yep.
And it's very different because I can hire and fire as I choose because I am the boss, right? Mm-hmm. And of course, I hope you think I listen and take input and even criticism from you guys, which I get plenty of. It's not the same.
There's no shortage.
Yeah. And it's not the same in public service, right? I don't get to choose. Nobody gets to choose. You choose. The voter chooses. I'm not telling you who to choose, but I certainly will tell you who I recommend. And I will tell you who I want to work with. And I will tell you who I think is best suited to capitalize on all these opportunities that Vienna has right now. I can't tell you how excited I am about what lies ahead for Vienna and how concerned I am about the leadership choices that are going to be made in this election. These are all contested races. And Drew, I might even ask you to, maybe I can find it again because this is so important to me, I'll paraphrase. In all the time except election time, you rely on us, your public servants, to take care of business in the city of Vienna, to make sure that the water runs, that the toilets flush, the drama is kept to a minimum, and we take care of the operation of the city. But now, in this brief election time, it's your duty to take a look, to spend a few minutes to understand. And I realize, people don't like yard signs in their front yard. I hate yard signs, but they're just a necessary evil, I suppose. Or even to interact with political candidates. And none of that is necessary as long as you pay attention. I'm going to be doing everything I can to provide information to the citizens of Vienna about the qualifications of the candidates that I am hoping will get elected to serve in this next and my last term in the city of Vienna. I'm very ambitious about what the things that I want to see accomplished, and I believe that it is going to take a team that works together. and that we have energy from all parts of that team, and we have effort from all parts of that team. You know the old 80-20 rule, right? You know what it is?
80% of the work is done by 20% of the people. Correct?
That's right. That's it. And what I'm hoping is that we get 100% of the council pulling in tandem, pulling in harness because that's the only way we're going to get all these things done. It is an ambitious and awesome agenda that we have coming up over the next 4 years. And it's going to take a dedicated, motivated, talented, experienced, and energetic group of people to take advantage of everything that we've got coming up, which we could spend the next 2 hours talking about. And I guess we can't. We got to go to work, right?
Right. Unfortunately, at some point, yeah. So you talk about, I'm just going to be the voice of dissent here, the devil's advocate. So you're talking about wanting to build a team that is all completely working in tandem, all pulling their weight in the same direction. And on one hand, yes, you could say that sounds great. On the other, don't you need that voice of dissent? I mean, you talk about how it's largely been a 5-2 council. Don't you need those two to keep the 5 in check? I mean, what happens if you build this team that's all just in unanimous agreement at all times? I mean, don't you think there's, a healthy case to be made for having some people to kind of check these ideas and push in other directions? I mean, how would you answer that?
Pretty directly. So first of all, I'll use my son-in-law, Seth Colvin, as an example. Seth is an ultra-conservative. He and I debate and disagree. We're already working together, restoring this warehouse. This is a 150,000 square foot warehouse that needs hundreds of thousands of dollars of restoration work. Seth is a mechanical engineer. I'm the financing source. We have those disputes. Randy Rapp and I have often disagreed about the way forward. I expect the same thing from Rod Smith. I know that Harry Dietzler is very much a man of his own mind. I believe Kerry Rapp, Tony Morrison is already in all of the participation that he's made in the public forum leading up to this election. All of these are spirited, individualistic people who have their own opinions. The difference is the ability to discuss, to reason, and to reach compromise when necessary. Many things just move forward because they make sense and are the right thing, and everybody will simply agree. But there will be many things where that is not the case, and I have no doubt that you will be electing 7 individual spirits and minds who will express their opinions. I'm not recommending this group because I think that they're just going to be a bunch of yes people. I have not been that to the mayor, although people want to disagree. I just largely agree with the logic of the mayor's decision and his leadership, which is informed. Let me take a minute. So when you talk about the mayor's qualifications and the institutional knowledge you mentioned. So, I first met the mayor when he was an usher at the Grand Central Mall Cinema when Star Wars came out. And I remember that you still had the velvet usher's uniform. And Randy looked completely ridiculous in it, but he wore it because that was the job. He went on to own service stations, the Chevron, where the current Dollar General is, and the Exxon, where Walgreens is. And he ran those businesses successfully for years. He went on to public service. Next he went to DuPont, and I believe he was an instrument tech. And he learned the ins and outs of all of that industrialized machinations, I suppose, necessary to run an industrial plant like DuPont. So the skill set that he has is so applicable to the operations of our water and sewer, and he's the chairman of the board. Plus the relationships that he's formed throughout this valley in the 20 years that he's provided service to the city of Vienna are invaluable. I don't have the list in front of me, but he is well respected, well received, and a leader not just in the city of Vienna, but in all of the communities in the Mid-Ohio Valley. You don't want to give up those connections, that experience, that leadership for some vague promise of change or difference that's being espoused by these candidates that are running against him. But yeah, I expect quite frankly, a much more spirited council with this makeup and not the toxic environment of just having a couple of naysayers who just want to play gotcha politics, disagree with most things just to be disagreeable, in my opinion. That is my opinion. And so that's my answer to your question, Drew.
All right. Well, that is fair then. Yeah. Like I said, I just wanted to kind of get that dissenting point out there because I know I've seen some criticism floating around. And again, I cannot stress enough, I don't live in Vienna. I actually, despite our relationship, I have my thoughts of who I think would be best suited for the job, but it's not my place, not my vote, not my race. But just wanted to get a chance to, or give you a chance, I guess, to kind of address those points.
And I don't have a problem with that. You can't do what I do and not develop a little bit of thick skin. But what I do want to make clear, I'm not trying to tell anybody how to vote. You do. I'm asking people to exercise your civic duty to make an informed decision and cast an intelligent ballot. And for those of you who have voted for me in the past, in the first two elections, I have led the ballot. I've received the most votes of all council members in both of the two elections I've run. And the only reason I mention that is because people must have some confidence in me. And so for those of you who do have confidence and do value my opinion, I have a clear opinion in my own mind of the votes that I want to cast. And based on my public role in the function of the city of Vienna, I have no problem in whatsoever, despite any criticism by others, of sharing with you what my opinions are. That is my right as an American to exercise free speech in the pursuit of democracy that makes this country what it is. So there you go, Drew.
Absolutely. Solid answer. There's our soundbite.
So final thoughts, Drew, from you. I'm gonna flip the script on you here a little bit. You've been a nice moderator for me.
Yeah, I don't really have a horse in this race. I'm not voting for any of you guys.
Yeah, well,
I don't live in Vienna, so I can't vote for any of this. No, I mean, I'll say for my part, and again, I mean, we've worked together for a long time, notwithstanding our relationship. I think you would agree with me when you say that I am not afraid to push back on you on anything. Like if I disagree on something, I'm not afraid to let you know it. Yeah, right? Yeah.
Yeah, fairly put.
Right. I think there's certainly something to be said for institutional knowledge. And I mean, people will make noise and argue back and forth about, term limits on all these upper offices that, again, are very, very, very far removed from anything you've been talking about here today. But just that institutional knowledge, those long-term relationships, both within this entity that's running and with all of these outside entities, and that ability to get things done and move things along in positive directions and continue positive momentum definitely has a lot of merit. I mean, you can name just dozens of examples of all these most successful companies in the world that have all of this institutional knowledge of these long-termers that are just in there, and they gain these, like I said, all the connections and just that intimate familiarity with how to improve these things and how to keep positive things going and increment on them when things are going well. And obviously, I've heaped some praise on how Vienna is. I do think it's a great little town, and it seems to be going well. And, I hope that it can continue to do so in whatever form that, it may end up taking. I mean, do with that what you will. As I said, I don't live in Vienna. I don't have a horse in this race. But as an outsider, it seems to be going pretty well. Vienna's tagline is what? The pride of the valley. And that certainly seems to play out in my experience.
Well, Drew, thanks for those accolades, and I wish you could vote, but I think that we're going to be all right even without your vote. I think that the people of Vienna, we're a close community. We understand what's going on in this town. The people know who have served them well, and I have confidence. Again, Randy and I are the only incumbents, but we have a very nice pool of candidates to select from to lead the city into the future. So, Drew, thanks for setting up our podcast booth. This has been our inaugural, so I'm sure it's pretty clunky and long-winded and could have been more concise for sure, but I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's been fun. I thank you guys for watching and bearing with us through only a few small technical snags for now until I start editing and find out there were dozens of them, but we'll figure it out. We'll overcome. We'll get there.
Copy that. And with that, we are signing off. Thank you so much for watching.
Yep. Thank you.